For the first time ever, I am thrilled to say we have an official sponsor for the Dirt Talk podcast, and that's Ariat. I've worn Ariat boots on every job site I've visited over the years, traveling in them across 5 continents. More importantly, I have yet to find a single project where working folks, unlike me, are not wearing Ariat boots and workwear in every condition imaginable. And there's really good reason for that, and that's because it's phenomenal stuff. And the more I've learned about Ariat and the company, the more I've loved their brand. So with this, Ariat is offering any Dirt Talk listener 10% off their next Ariat order at ariat.com/dirttalk. That's 10% off boots, jeans, and workwear at ariat.com/dirttalk or at the link in this episode's description. With that, let's get to the show. Is this thing on?
No.
Cool. Excellent. Well, today's Monday podcast, to get right into it, is going to be about college, my experience in college, how I played the game, and my advice for parents whose kids may be going to college at some point or are considering college, or people in college, or someone in high school potentially going to college, future state. That's what this is aimed at. The trades are fantastic. I just think everybody in a way is getting a little too caught up in the college, not college argument.
Yeah.
As if it's just completely black and white, and that me, until I'm blue in the face, saying college isn't good anymore. Like I don't know. I just don't know if that's the most effective way to do it. I think I want to be a champion for the dirt world. I don't care what your education is. If you go to college, great, come to the dirt world. If you don't come to college, great, come to the dirt world. The industry doesn't depend upon college, no college. And so I think, sure, in a way, traditionally it does, but I think future state, it doesn't really depend upon either. And the reality is we need both, because in construction, as far as I know, we still need engineers, we still need lawyers, we still need accountants. We still need all kinds of roles that formally must be trained through colleges. So I've gotten into this in more detail in the Building Build With series.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to that, you can go back and just search that. It was maybe a year and a half ago now. I feel like around the holidays in 2022.
Probably a year and a half.
Yeah, so it's a little bit ago, but if you want to hear more about my background in significant detail, you can listen to that series that we put together.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through it a little bit more briefly here. I was raised by, my father was extremely highly educated. He went to law school, and then he went to graduate school after law school, and then he clerked in the federal circuit, Ninth Circuit, I think it was, in DC for a while. Yeah. And he spent a lot of time just figuring out and specializing before he actually became like a legitimate lawyer.
Do you have to have a master's?
No, but for how specialized he got, you kind of do. So,
yeah, I mean, it's expected, I guess.
Yeah, so he's highly educated, as white collar as it gets, is what I tell people. And I grew up in that world. Some of my friends' parents were highly educated, others weren't, but most everybody was extremely, extremely accomplished. And so when it came time to transition from high school to college, there was no decision to be made. It was like going from 6th grade to 7th grade. There wasn't. You don't think, oh, do I really want to go to 7th grade? It was, no, I'm going to college. It's just what you do, for better or for worse. So I better figure out what I'm going to do. And so I, throughout high school, wanted to do different things. I thought about potentially joining the military for a while, this pathway, that pathway. But ultimately, my senior year, when I was starting to get serious about it, I met with Rich Pearson, who was running the construction company doing the work in my neighborhood, the big pipe job. And I talked to him my fall semester, senior year of high school, about college, what his opinion was, what I should study, what he studied, why he studied that, and what I should do professionally. And he had two pieces of advice for me. He said, go to school for engineering, either civil or construction, and work for as many different companies as possible, because it's a big world, construction, and it's hard to determine where you want to go if you haven't had a lot of different experiences. And so that's exactly what I did. I got a job for him at his company, $13 an hour, labor on a pipe crew right after high school, a week out of school, with the understanding that I was going to go to college. So it was just a summer job. My dad gave me, I think in 2009, he invested $10,000 per child into the stock market when everything had bottomed out.
Yep.
And by the time I was going into college, which was 2013, it was worth about $34,000. So he did quite well in the stock market. It kind of like you could have just bought anything and it would have gone up.
Just like mutual stuff, mutual funds.
No.
No.
He picked a few different stocks, like Apple,
nice.
for example.
Nice.
So he bought the same thing for every kid. So but I had the least amount of time. I was the oldest, so it was $34,000, and I knew this. He was very upfront. He said, "Hey, this is what I've saved for your college. You figure it out."
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "Cool." So I was in Arizona. I was at public school, public high school. I went to private school up until 8th grade, and then I did public high school, which was a really good move because it was a little bit more like real life than the very sheltered world that is private school.
Yeah.
So I naturally then, there's 3 universities in Arizona: Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona State in Tempe, and University of Arizona in Tucson. I didn't want to go to Flagstaff, so I just ruled that one out. So it was really just between ASU, U of A. I was only considering in-state because out-of-state, I don't quite understand why it is this way, but out-of-state is way more expensive. If I was going to go to a California school, it would be $50,000 a year for the exact same product, undergraduate. An undergraduate degree is almost, unless I want to become a PhD in chemistry, even if I wanted to be a PhD in chemistry, it's hard to justify spending a significant sum on an undergraduate degree. No one really cares about undergraduate. Grad school is where the rubber meets the road. And yeah, if you want to go to an Ivy, cool. If you want to go to a great law school, med school, so on and so forth, cool. But undergraduate is undergraduate. So I was like, I don't need to go live anywhere else and spend an absurd amount of money.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go focus in Arizona. So that's what I do to keep my tuition in state. I tour U of A, I tour Arizona State, I apply to both. Arizona State says, we'll pay for your school. And you can come into the honors college, even though my grades weren't very good in high school. So I was like, cool,
okay.
That made my mind up for me. I'm going to Arizona State. So I work construction. I started Arizona State. They were paying my tuition. I just had to pay room and board that first year, which I used some of the college fund for.
Yeah.
Which was wildly expensive, completely stupid that they charge. It's almost criminal how much they charge. And then that first year at school, I was in the civil engineering program, which is the same as construction. And at the end of that year, I then switched to the construction engineering program, which is civil engineering with some construction management classes, is essentially what it is. So I start civil engineering, end up in construction that first year, engineering, based on Rich Pearson's recommendation. It was completely terrible. But the nice thing was going to a school strong in construction was that the construction management school had career fairs. And so I meet another local construction company, Markham, through a career fair my freshman year. Mm-hmm. They didn't allow freshmen to go to these career fairs, but I just went anyway. because
Yeah, who cares?
yeah, who cares? Yeah. And so technically I wasn't allowed to be there, but it was like, why not?
Yeah,
I want a job. And so I met Markham. They said, hey, you can work in our office during the school year. And so I ended up working in the office. And then I was very, very direct with them. I said, I want to go back into the field for the summer. So they put me with a foreman, Jose. I followed him around for the summer on a pipe crew for various jobs in Phoenix. Absolutely, absolutely loving life. I was...
no experience really at that point, or some with Pearson.
I had worked for Pearson, which is then how I got the job with Markham, because they knew Rich.
Oh, okay.
Mike Markham knew Rich. And then I spent the summer with Markham, and I worked for the school year with Markham. Then I go into my sophomore year. At this point, I'm now living outside of the dorms, so my living expenses are much cheaper.
Yep.
I have the money that I've been able to save by working construction, which was a ton of money. And I asked one of the guys at Markham that kind of took me under his wing, Chris Cometti, what I should do. And he said you should probably, at this point, I would get out of the trench and start looking for a management job for the next summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so through connections I was able to make, again through career fairs at the school, I was able to then get lined up with Skanska, and I chose Skanska for my third summer, which then they sent me. You basically, the big contractors, the way it works is you just sign up with them, and then at this point I started with them, and they still didn't even tell me where I was going. And then that first week they essentially give you your orders, and I was off to then the railroad in California for the summer. So that's what I did with them. That was my first experience in more of a management role. So I was doing paperwork, time cards, a lot of just the documentation required for a project that a lot of people don't ever see. There's a ton of paperwork required to get paid for stuff, to get approved for stuff, to buy materials, to get equipment, to make sure everybody's in the right place. And that's what I was doing in the railroad. So I was split between the field and the on-site office in the middle of completely nowhere. It was miserable because of the work itself, but got a lot of good experience there. Then I'll just say, Skanska changed their strategy in our region. So the option to continue with Skanska was essentially no more. And that's when I had to go then find my last job. I'll say once I end with Skanska, I was into my junior year of college. I met a company through another guy I met at the construction management school. I met a company called Hayden. Mm-hmm. And I planned to work with them 20, 25 hours a week during the school year. Because at this point, I had done a lot of my entry-level engineering courses, and not that engineering was any easier. I really struggled through engineering. It was, I knew how to play the schedule game a little bit better. And so I was able to line up my schedule so that I could work a pretty significant part-time role for Hayden in the office. And so I would go to their office, which was pretty close to Tempe, and I would help them with takeoffs and estimating work. So I got really good at reading plans, understanding what goes into pricing a job, understanding different materials, reading through specifications. I got to see the front end of things. And that was my junior year during school and senior year during school. Then I got a job for my last summer with Kiewit in the Northwest District, because I had competed my sophomore year, I believe, at the Reno competition. I had met the Kiewit Northwest folks. I was already pledged to Skanska at that time. But then now that Skanska was out the window, I was able to reconnect with those Kiewit folks, specifically up in the Northwest District, because I wanted to get the hell out of Arizona in the summer.
Yeah.
So then they sent me to Washington for that last summer doing blasting work. And then I went back to Hayden. And that was my agreement with Hayden was, hey, I have a job with Kiewit for the summer, but then I'll come back and my senior year will evaluate where the hell I go from here. So that's kind of like my career through college. One, looking back on everything, I learned a few pretty key lessons here. One, I was able, once I got more and more into construction, to apply for a lot of construction-specific scholarships. There are scholarships offered by a lot of different companies and associations to make everybody feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And all it is essentially free money if you fill out the right application the right way.
Yeah.
And so I would go get the list of every semester of all of the outstanding construction scholarships available. And I would spend a day in the library or at a coffee shop just going down the list and applying.
Was it like the same application?
No, but it kind of the same thing over and over and over, write an essay or this or that. It wasn't all that complicated.
It just takes a couple hours of
It just takes time.
Focus time.
Yeah, it's almost administrative work.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is a lot of people don't apply for these. And so I didn't get most of them, but I got enough to get, a $5,000 check here, a $2,000 check here, a $1,500 check here. And that ended up stacking up pretty good. And so with my ASU scholarship for my tuition, with my almost full-time work year-round, and then with and probably full-time work if you look at it from an hour standpoint with how many hours I was putting in over the summer combined to what I was doing over the school year, and then plus the scholarship money, I was way ahead on school. So I didn't have a dime of student loan. And I was also paying all of my living expenses and also stacking up a significant sum of money that I was able to then invest and make more money with, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So that was number one, was if you're considering college right now, staying in state is the smartest thing you can do for undergraduate. There are so few reasons why I would see anyone going out of state. But in-state can be a really, really good deal, especially depending on where you are. And Arizona is a great place, really good deal. All three schools, major schools, and then Grand Canyon University, they're all really, really good options right now. So that was number one. That was huge. The second thing I learned was that I took advantage of my time in college to meet people. If you just wait for people to come to you, you won't meet anybody. And so I would, using my status as a student, would reach out to people and really just express a desire to learn. And so I would go to lunch or meet different construction executives at their offices quite regularly, 1, 2, 3 a month while I was in college.
How did you find these people? Do you just look them up?
Yeah, you just look them up. Okay, cool. XYZ company.
Yeah.
You go to their website. Who's the president? Cool. What's the office number? You call the office number. Where's their email? All right, I'm going to Google so-and-so email. It's not on the internet. Okay. I'm going to find another person at their company who's more accessible. I'm going to figure out what their email format is. I'm going to then plug their name into their email format. I'm going to try a few different formats.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send an email basically just saying, hey, my name's Aaron Witt. I'm a sophomore. I'm a junior at Arizona State. I'm studying construction. I want to learn more about the industry. I admire your company. I admire what you've done. And I would love the opportunity to either take you to lunch or just meet you at your office to talk through who you are and what you've done, if that's more convenient. That would be essentially the structure of my emails. Sometimes they wouldn't go responded to. I would follow up, but most of the time I would get access to these people. And then when you meet with these people and you have a good meeting, then the next follow-up is, who else could I meet? And then they'll connect you with 1 or 2 people, and you could just quite literally just follow that chain almost indefinitely, which was awesome. And that's what I did. So one, I got to leverage, I guess another lesson was I got to leverage my status as a student to meet people I wouldn't otherwise get to meet and have conversations I wouldn't otherwise get to have, because when you're a student, you are completely You're just not threatening whatsoever. And people, they want to help and invest back into the next generation. And so if you express that curiosity, they'll spend the time with you.
Especially in construction.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the reasons you had a lot of success, is because that's kind of how the industry is. And most people that I've met in construction they appreciate enthusiasm over like a lot of shit.
Yeah, they're just good people.
They just don't want you, like, a lot of people in construction like people who just get shit done. Yeah. And it's not like that for every industry. Sometimes it's like a status thing that people are looking for. But yeah, like you said, you have that college email, which definitely utilize, because having like a work or college email makes you look way more legit.
Yeah, and again, if you're sitting there waiting for the college to set you up with the right people, you're so behind. So scholarships were huge. Meeting people was huge. Another thing I took advantage of while being in college, and this is why I'm an advocate for college in a lot of ways when done right, is that when you're 18, it's really hard to go into the adult world because you are so unequipped for it. You don't know what the hell you're doing. It's hard to even choose where you should go. Having 4 years of college essentially insulates you from the real world in a way, and allows you to experiment in a way you would not be able to if you just had a career and had to support yourself in those same years. And so I was able to go work for 5 different companies in the span of those 4 years and get a huge array of experience, from being in the ditch with the shovel, laying pipe, to running equipment, to helping manage projects, to tracking high explosives, to estimating work, to working on alternative work. You're able to helping with the safety department. You're able to go get and try so many different things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to try, that can then inform where you go in the future. Yeah. I at least knew that heavy construction was for me. I didn't know what heavy construction was until that first conversation with Rich Pearson. He told me what heavy construction was. I saw it for myself and I said, that's it. But a lot of times people, cool, you want to go into construction. Well, there's kind of 3 pathways then. There's heavy construction, there's commercial construction, there's residential construction. If you just want to go into construction, but you don't know what 3, my first advice is go try heavy construction, then try commercial construction, then try residential construction, and see what you like, and then start going down that pathway. Yeah. And even in heavy construction, there's multiple different pathways there. You can move dirt, you can pour concrete, you can build roads. And then even beyond that, Mr. Pearson, he said, it's not just about choosing what sector of the market you want to go into, but then it's also about what kind of company you want to go work for. And so he wasn't just suggesting that I go try different companies, but his argument was you also want to try different size companies. And so I worked for him, which was a smaller company. Markham was kind of like a medium company. And then you got Skanska and Kiewit, both $10 billion plus international contractors. I ended up back with Hayden, which was like a medium-sized company. But I got to see the different pros and cons of each type of company as well. And while in your 20s, there is something to say about working years for the same company, but I would almost argue that I would jump around because, and I did this, I jumped around a lot more thanks to college, but I did it intentionally because I knew that if I could really figure out what I most enjoyed and what company I would be best at, then where I ultimately end up is somewhere I'll be very, very effective. And then with those different companies, I was able to then, once you as a freshman have a construction job, you're more valuable than anybody else in your class when you're a sophomore because no one's had a job yet. And then once you become a junior, you already have 2 years of construction experience. Everybody's just now starting to look probably. You're more valuable than anybody else. And you can just pick and choose what company you want to go to work for. And by senior year, I quite literally could have just chosen any construction company out there. And I had my job offer signed in September of my senior year. And so my senior year was really just a formality. Don't fail and you're good to go. And so that was a big lesson learned. And that's something I feel like I did right, was I experimented. And I don't see a lot of kids using that opportunity. That is the time they spend in college in their early 20s to just go experiment, because you can't know what the hell you want to dedicate your life to if you don't go try a bunch of stuff. You have to go try a bunch of stuff. Or even if you're at a family company, go work for a company that is not your family company, because you will ultimately be more valuable thanks to that experience. By removing yourself from that equation, go and put yourself elsewhere, you'll learn a lot more. So that was huge.
Yeah. And I mean, this could look, what you're talking about, like, people don't have to do it exactly like that. I mean, I think your story is very unique and it worked for you. But if you're wanting to work for college and make connections, I know, like, when I was in the audio program, I had a professor say, hey, just go do live sound at your church. I mean, you could volunteer, say someone's, if it's in construction, say someone's helping build a park or something. There's always volunteer work as well, if you can make that work.
I think a college degree, the value I got out of my degree is twofold. One, I had 4 years to experiment.
Yeah.
And so if you are just relying on that degree after 4 years to make you valuable, you are sadly mistaken. You are sadly mistaken. You are, as far as I'm concerned, as an employer, as worthless in a way as you went in, if you're just relying on your degree to convey your value. I don't care. We don't ask. Have I ever asked for your degree?
No, didn't. I don't think you knew I had.
I didn't even know you had one. No, I didn't know, because it's just not relevant. It's just not relevant. And I even in construction, I've never been asked for my degree. I've never once been asked to prove that I have a degree.
Yeah. Although I wouldn't have applied here, and I probably wouldn't have been looked at. I'm not sure what the hiring was like at that time, but I wouldn't have had the confidence to apply. But
my point is, if that is all you're rooting your prospects in, you're mistaken in this world. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And then two, because of engineering, because I essentially failed my way through engineering.
Yeah.
I learned how to solve problems and how to solve very complex problems, so that when I got into the real world, the problems I was having to solve were not nearly as hard as what I just had to do for 4 years.
Yeah.
Every problem now I solve, it's like, well, yeah, it's just there's always a solution. I just need to continue working on looking at this from different perspectives until I find that solution.
Yeah.
So I would say for those two reasons, it was remarkably valuable. And then I was ultimately then able to choose the right company for me post college, which was a medium-sized company, great opportunity, a project that I had helped bid and estimate. It was a alternative delivery type project. It was in a different state. I wanted to get out of Arizona.
Yeah.
So it kind of fit all my criteria. But I would not have had that opportunity had I just met the minimum requirements for my degree, which was one internship. All you had to do was just one formal internship, and my degree requirements would have been met. But instead I did 5, which then it set me up for any kind of thing I wanted to do after that. And it wasn't and not from an entitlement standpoint, but because I just had put myself ahead.
Yeah.
No one was asking about my GPA. No one in the construction industry cares about any of that. I dropped out of the honors college after 3 semesters because I just didn't, paying for it just wasn't valuable because no one would care in the construction industry. No one was really looking at my extracurricular activities. I was doing some stuff at school, volunteering, XYZ, but all anybody cared about was, are you going to get after it? And what do you know in the real world? And I was able to demonstrate that, yeah, I've done XYZ, so I'm ready to get after it. And then 2, I don't know really how to build stuff, but I have at least been around the block. So I now have this engineering background. I have this practical experience, which makes me among the most valuable candidates coming out of this program. And you're able to wield that, especially nowadays, to your advantage because companies need good people. To summarize here.
Yeah. Go back. 1,
if you don't want to go to college, don't go to college. You can do just fine. I've met people that have been, they're some of the best operators I've ever been around. No college degree. I've been around some amazing operators that have a college degree. Cool. Yeah. I've met people that have built $100 million plus companies with a college degree, built $100 million plus companies without a college degree. I like this world because it doesn't start with a piece of paper that says you're qualified even when you're really not. There is,
you can just learn.
Yeah, there's no weight on what your professional qualifications are in construction. Yeah, in engineering you do need a degree because legally that's the only way to do that world. But it's based on your hard work and based on how you play the game. That is construction. So if you don't want to go to school, don't go to school. I think you can be wildly successful without it. If you do go to school, I highly recommend you stay in state and try to do it in the most cost-effective way because no one cares where you go. And you don't need to go get debt in most places. I don't think that's like a blanket statement, but I think in most places you don't need to go get debt. I think using college to experiment is essential. I think working as much as you can in college is essential. Again, someone with just a college degree doesn't in the slightest impress me because it's like, cool, you were able to follow directions for 4 years. Even if your GPA is a 4.0, good for you. Congratulations. But if you don't have work experience, you're still not, you still don't have value in the marketplace, really. And so work experience is key. Leveraging your position in school to meet the right people is absolutely essential to have the right experiences. I was able to not just meet people, but visit a lot of construction projects that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to visit solely because I was a student and I was able to just message superintendents or walk into job trailers and ask for tours, which was pretty cool. And trying stuff is really, really valuable. I think that's probably the biggest thing I've noticed with people is that I think young people, they hang around a little too long. They're way more loyal to these companies than the companies are to them. And they're fooled into thinking they're not just a number when they are 100% just a number. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean take advantage of companies. That means do your part for the value exchange. The company is paying you to deliver value. You deliver that value. Equal value exchange. And I would always aim to deliver more value and go above and beyond. But just remember, if push comes to shove, you are a number, you are nothing more than that. And I kept that in mind because that was also, it keeps a sense of humility within you, because to attract people from out of school, I do think these companies sell a bill of goods that isn't exactly there. And I think that's across the board. That's a blanket statement. I think they overpromise in a lot of ways. I would view it as what is best for you. What is best for you? Because what's best for you is ultimately what's best for the companies you'll work at long term. And so while you're in school, you don't have to play the game like everybody else is. And if you play it differently, you are far ahead of everybody else. It's really easy to get far ahead of everybody else because you just have to go along a little bit different of a path, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then 2, after school, play the game. Like in your 20s, if you don't know what you want to do, that's fine. Try something. Try whatever is available to you today and learn what you can. And if you get to a point where you know it's not for you or you're not learning anymore, go somewhere else, which is scary. But the risk, especially if you don't have student loans, even if you do have student loans, is very, 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 it's the lowest it will ever be in your 20s. And wield that to your advantage. Because if you don't, then you essentially, it only becomes harder in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It only becomes harder. And so if you get settled in your 20s, this force, this comfort, and the more you earn, it just pulls you further and further away from where you ultimately should be.
Yeah.
And as I talk through this too, look at the overall opportunity, not the money. It's fun to look at the money and talk to your friends senior year about how much money you're going to get paid and what your salary is going to be and what benefits you have. But ultimately, none of that matters, especially in your 20s. Because if you do prioritize the experience and the opportunity before the money will sort itself out along the way. And most companies pay pretty good money. So I think the money in construction, and that's why I'm very pro construction management degree or construction degree overall, is you'll make really good money out of school, probably between 60 to 90 out of school right away, which is sick. But don't base your decision making on the dollars and cents, because I think that can quickly lead you astray, especially when these companies start paying you a ton of money. They do that by design to retain you, but then you end up adjusting your quality of life to whatever that salary is. And then even if you don't like it, you can't go anywhere else because that's what you've adjusted to. You'll be able to make more money long term if you are very good at what you do.
Yeah.
And if you are truly
consistent.
if you're truly aligned with your unique skill set.
Yeah.
But you have to, it takes sometimes a long time to figure out what the hell that unique skill set even is. And it takes a lot of trial and error to get there. And so I almost feel sad for some people. They're making a killing, but you can just tell they're dying on the inside. But they just can't go anywhere else because they can't go earn that amount of money. They would have to take a step back to go to a different company and potentially even take on a different role. But they can't do that because they have this mortgage or they have this payment or they have that payment, or they're just not willing to take a step back.
Yeah.
And I think that's the danger of the money made in this world is, on average, I think the bigger contractors pay better. Because they have to, because they require a lot more hours, because they require you to move a lot. They take more from your life, which is fine. But
you serve a specific purpose to them.
Yeah, but say you're making $250,000 a year, in your 30s, but now you want to take more time with your young children at home, or you don't want to move every 6 months, or you just don't want to work 80 hours a week anymore. But you've adjusted your cost of living to that salary. You're stuck. And I see a lot of people as well. They get stuck in that equation, and then what happens is their family ends up getting destroyed as a result. They're divorced. They don't see their kids as much, whatever it is. So all I'm saying, and this is just based on what I've observed across the board, go do what's best for you in your 20s while you're in college, and especially in your 20s. If you want to go work out of the country, go work out of the country. If you want to go work at the biggest construction project in the world, go work at the biggest construction project in the world. Go work out of state. Go to a big company. Go to this small company over here that you've always been fascinated with that does this really specialty work all over the place. You can go do all of that, but just also do that with the bigger picture in mind. Don't get too sucked into whatever's going on there, just assuming that's the way your world will always work, because I think a lot of times people they'll either get too caught up in that life or they'll burn bridges in the previous life or whatever it is. And then they want to come back to a simpler life that doesn't maybe involve travel nonstop, or again, 80 hours a week nonstop, or weekend work or night work or whatever it is. But their options are limited because they've forgotten that that could be an option future state.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any of that was cohesive. I was going to write some of my thoughts down before this, but then I just thought, no, I kind of actually just want to wander through it and think through it. But I'm really glad I went in state. I didn't take on debt for college.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really grateful I worked all the way through college because that gave me more than enough money to take care of things. Working construction is sick because you do make a ton of money. You make a killing. It
can
incredible.
be flexible too. It can be pretty flexible.
Kind of. Like
part-time gigs.
Kind of. You have to set it up right.
Yeah, you still have to do some finagling.
And so, the job I had at Hayden was flexible just because I defined that first. But working in the field is not flexible. Like, there's no flexibility with Kiewit. You're either on or you're off in a lot of ways.
That's
and
true.
So it's just, you don't say, they don't say, okay, you're going to Washington. I say, Washington's a little too far away. It doesn't work that way.
I meant for during the school year.
Yeah,
if you can figure out how to do that, people will work with you.
If you can meet the right people.
But summer, just bust your ass.
Yeah,
You're not doing anything else. So,
but
sorry, did I derail that?
I don't know where I was. You can make it. You can make good money. So I'm glad I worked all the way through. I'm really grateful I worked for 5 different companies because I think that put me way better off. I'm really glad that I started my freshman year meeting people because that put me way ahead of everybody else when it came to my junior and senior year, which took a ton of stress off me and I could just focus on passing my classes, which was fantastic.
That one's huge.
And then I'm grateful I played things by ear in my 20s, and I have experimented it even in my 20s, even while at BuildWit, trying to then figure out what I'm uniquely good at and how I can then focus on that and pour myself into that rather than trying to beat my head against the wall in engineering, for example. I did engineering school, but I would be I don't think I would even be capable of engineering right now. And that's not me being humble. That's dead serious. I don't think I could even remotely do a half day as an engineer right now because that's just not my skill set. But I wouldn't have figured that out had I not done it.
Yeah.
So
try it out.
Use college, no college. I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of things. But if you do go to college, use it wisely because it's an opportunity. And if you use it wisely, it can leapfrog. You can leapfrog a lot in your life. You can set yourself up for some really, 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 really cool things. Or you can just fuck off for 4 years and get absolutely nowhere, which I've also seen plenty as well.
Yeah, and then you'll figure it out.
Or you'll just never figure it out. You'll be miserable your entire life, like most people.
Yeah, I did partially that.
Walking through life like a plastic bag in the wind. You're just floating wherever you're pushed. That's where you go.
Yeah, and keep that. Yeah, a lot of people just they try to specialize in one thing. And they're not like instantly good at it, and then they don't explore anything adjacent. They're not like they're just like, oh well fuck, I'm a shitty stick welder. They don't go over and try they're like, I really want to do MIG welding, but then don't consider any other type of welding if they're could be actually good at it. Or they don't consider like, hey, maybe I'm better at turning bolts or pipe fitting or doing something because they'll just never explore that.
To draw the parallel back to school, though, it's like I went to engineering school, so I have to be an engineer. That's not very flawed logic. Yeah. It would be a huge mistake to use to judge my future and my value on my degree. It makes no difference. And no one cares that I have an engineering degree. I care about it because I know how hard it was and how miserable it was for me to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it was just nonstop. It was 4 years of total failure in everything I did. I didn't excel in a single fucking thing. And that's the only value it's given me. It's given me a lot of confidence to solve problems. But had I said, well, I spent all that time and effort and stress to get an engineering degree, so now I'm going to have to go bang my head against the wall and just figure out how to be an engineer. I started studying for my engineering exam. I just stopped because I just started going through. I'm like, I don't know how to do any of this. So and what is this gonna do for me? It's not gonna do anything. This isn't what I want to do. So I just stopped, and it's not a loss. It's like, well, I spent the 4 years figuring all this stuff out that I wouldn't have otherwise. Yeah. But at the same time, defining yourself based on what degree you get is also a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's like is it really gonna make me happy to do this thing that I said I was going to do at 18?
No,
going into college. It's like, who knows?
So that, I think, are I guess that's my, if you want to call it advice, that's my advice. Those are some of my thoughts around college, construction management, construction engineering, college, no college. I can just speak to it from a college standpoint because I went to college. I can't speak to it from a I didn't go to college standpoint.
Yeah.
So that's the perspective I can offer. I can only offer as well what I've observed. So take that for whatever you will, but that's what I got today.
Cool.
I really have to pee as well because I just chugged this whole electrolyte drink while we were talking.
That's a wrap. We'll title it something clickbaity.
Okay. And, title it clickbaity. And everybody, thanks for listening. If you found this valuable or someone else may benefit from hearing it that send it their way. And we'll see you on the next one. Stay dirty.